Joining me here at the anchor desk, an old friend of mine, Foster Friess, who is the founder of Friess Associates, a noted businessman who has had tremendous success on Wall Street as an investment manager, but very outspokenly, unashamedly embraced Christianity and a conservative philosophy that he shares with us all. Foster, it is so good to have you here on America's Forum.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. Anytime I can spend a little time with you, JD, it's a treat.
Like the old days in the neighborhood up around Pinnacle Peak in our old Arizona stomping grounds. Well, the big victory for the Republicans last week, and the president takes off for this tour, goes to China, Australia, comes back home, is still talking about a type of executive amnesty. When we sit here and contemplate that, what concerns you most about the situation?
Well, when you talk about immigration reform, wouldn't it be neat if we just went through section by section of existing law and say what do we want to change? Because I bet if you do that, there's nothing that you really need to change. It's just an issue of enforcement. And so if we had enforcement, we wouldn't be talking about reform. And I think the president, with his pencil and his phone, is triggered by Debbie Wasserman Schultz saying, you know, it's a do-nothing Congress, do-nothing Congress. The reason it's a do-nothing Congress is the House passes these bills. Some of them had 18 Democrat votes, and Harry Reid sits on there. There's 459 bills piled up on Harry Reid's desk. And so somehow the Republicans are blamed for the lack of do-nothing. Although I must say, I think there's some House bills that, Senate bills that maybe Boehner's sitting on too.
Well, this whole notion of divided government, or at least a divided legislative branch, will change next January. And again, dealing with what is to come in January, others have done their talking on the Sunday shows. For example, James Lankford of Oklahoma, serving in the Congress, now senator-elect from that state. And again, he talks about the perception of what should be going on in the wake of this election and what the president needs to recognize. James Lankford, we should point out, is someone who is an ordained pastor. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, Foster, because there seems to be a difference of opinion in the Christian community about, and the differences of opinion across Christendom, so it would appear. Those who say, look, we need to embrace these newcomers, these people just based on their need and the abject poverty from whence they come. Are we being less than compassionate by insisting on the rule of law?
Well, I think the rule of law has to exist, otherwise you can't have a society and a culture. And I believe there's a wonderful verse, Old Testament, welcome strangers into your land. And I think we are a very welcoming nation, but I think it's important that these people have come across illegally, or 40%, I understand, have just simply overstayed their visa. It's not fair to those people that have spent all the time standing in line. So any immigration reform ought to clearly state that none of these people can butt the line.
About 1:30 remains in this segment. We have a lot of other things to talk about, but Foster, as you have been involved in the private sector, but very publicly in philanthropy, if there's kind of a checklist for you in terms of your concerns for your family, for this nation, the top 3 concerns, what would that be? We got about a minute.
I would say militant Islam, and militant Islam. And those are the words that Netanyahu. I was just at, the name of the camp was Black Tiger Camp on the Peshmerga line. So 48 hours ago, I was staring at the ISIS boys about 12 miles away. And I think we have to arm the Kurds because they can be our boots on the ground. And no one seems to be talking about that. Everybody thinks we have to have American boots on the ground. I just met with the vice commander. He doesn't have tanks. He doesn't have anti-tank weapons. He's trying to stop tanks coming at him that were supplied to the ISIS people by the U.S. through the Baghdad government. The Baghdad government just threw up their hands and said, you know, we give up, and all this equipment that we supplied them is now fighting our Peshmerga friends. So it's very important that your listeners get behind the arming of the Kurds.
Well, we're going to talk more about that because we've got another segment with Foster Friess right here to discuss the fact that you have no visible signs of jet lag coming back from the Peshmerga and other options and other public policies that should be of our concern. Foster Friess, our guest, maybe to talk about our mutual friend Rick Santorum, too. All that's ahead as America's Forum continues here on Newsmax TV.